There's a couple of ways that you can modify the DOM to add new elements to your page. You can either create elements manually from scratch or just output a string that has the elements inside. One is always more convenient than the other, depending on the situation. You know it's time to apply. I'm going to split this up into two videos because they're different techniques. Now I'll show you how to do this with Bootstrap 5 to automate adding indicators. But this is a foundational technique that you need to know. You can see that it's quite complex to even do a simple set of indicators. And as the number of images grows, this gets even longer. You create a div with a class of carousel indicators, and then a number of buttons for each image inside the carousel. Each button has a number of important data attribute. Data BS target identifies the ID of the slideshow. This should go in the parent of the carousel and have a unique ID to each slideshow on the page. Data BS slide 2 has the number of the slide. Since JavaScript is 0 indexed, the first image gets a number 0, the second image gets a number 1, and so on and so forth. The indicator belonging to the image that is showing when the page loads should also have a class of active. There are a few assistive device classes that you should add in here. If this is an image that is currently showing, then you should add an area current of true. Finally, each indicator should have a label of area label with some name. Now the key to deciding which approach to use is the quantity of tags versus the variables that you need to use to build the element. This has a lot of properties, but it's really just a container with a couple of buttons. What I want to do is add a div with a class of carousel indicators to a carousel. If that div exists, I want my program to take care of adding the indicators. To create elements in the DOM, you need to do 4 things. First, you need to find out where to insert the elements. Then you can create the element you want in the DOM. It will live in memory until you add it. Once you create the element, you can add any properties using JavaScript. Finally, you'll insert the element with all of its properties back into the DOM. We'll start off by creating a const for where we want the elements to live. To find the elements, you can use something like query selector or query selector all. The difference is that query selector all returns a list. In our case, query selector all makes more sense because our carousel could live with others in the same page. So I want to get a list of all the carousels on the page. We'll need to go through each of these items and extract each of the IDs of the carousels on the page so that we can use them in our code. We want to make sure that each of the carousels has an ID. Otherwise, we won't count them on our list, just in case someone forgets to add an ID to one of the carousels. If the IDs exist, we want to go through all the images in that carousel. Each of them will have a class of carousel item. To create the indicators, we're going to go through each of the items in the carousel and then create the elements. First, we'll create the button that is going to have all the different properties. Let's go ahead and add the type of button. When you want to add a data attribute to an element with JavaScript, you use the dataset property, and you add things in what we call camel case. Lowercase for the first word, and then uppercase for every word after that. To create these variables, we're using the template expression syntax. You use the tick marks, and inside you put in a $sign plus curly braces, and then the name of the variable that you want to print. In the case of BS target, we want to add an ID element. So we're putting a £sign at the beginning. And in the case of BS slide 2, we just need the index that we got when we created the for each statement. Now, if this is the first element, we'll need to add a couple of additional items onto this particular button. We'll need to add a class name of active as well as the area current attribute of true. Now that we've done all this, we can add this element into the DOM. We'll use append child to do this. You can see that the indicators are now working and they were generated automatically for us by using this JavaScript. The nice thing is that we don't have to worry about how many carousel items we have. Now that we've created the elements from scratch, our carousel works great, and that's one less thing we have to worry about on our page. Now, learning how to manage the DOM, even now that things like React and Vue make it easier for you, is still a core skill that you should be comfortable with.